For a few agonizing seconds, Ethan couldn't move. He could only watch the woman approach the host stand, her fingers nervously brushing the strap of her purse. She wasn't Lily. He knew that. He told himself that. But the resemblance was so sharp it felt like grief had risen from the ground and wrapped itself around him again. When the host guided her toward him, she smiled, a soft, shy smile that twisted something deep inside his chest. "Hi, I'm Ava," she said, extending a hand. Her voice wasn't Lily's. It carried a slightly lower warmth, a faint rasp at the edges. Ethan forced himself to breathe and took her hand gently. "Ethan." He hesitated, then added, "It's really nice to meet you." Ava slid into the booth across from him, smoothing her hair behind her ear. "I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. The rain came out of nowhere." "It's fine," Ethan said quickly. "I don't mind." The waiter arrived with water. The clinking of glasses, soft music, and murmur of conversations filled the background. But Ethan felt strangely distant from all of it, as if the world around him had softened and narrowed down to the woman sitting across from him. Ava glanced at him for a beat longer than expected. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." His heart skipped. Too close to the truth. "I'm fine," he lied gently. "Just, long day at work." Ava nodded slowly, though her eyes lingered on his a moment more, as if trying to read something written behind them. Then came the first flicker of kindness, subtle yet disarming. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said softly, "Well, if today was rough, maybe tonight can be your break from all that. I know we just met, but I'm rooting for this evening to be a good one for you." Her sincerity was unexpected. It was small, almost invisible to the room. But to Ethan, it felt like someone had cracked open a window in a suffocating place. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. Ava flipped open the menu, but Ethan was still caught between the past and present, between memory and reality. "Can I ask you something?" she said without looking up. "Sure. Why did your friend think we'd be a good match?" "She told me you're quiet but kind, that you're loyal to a fault." Ava chuckled lightly. "That last part almost scared me. Loyalty's rare these days." Ethan swallowed. "Maybe she oversold me." "I don't think so." Ava rested her chin on her hand. "You look like someone who carries a lot, but still chooses to be gentle." His breath faltered. How could she see him so clearly? "How about you?" he asked, trying to steady himself. "What did she say about you?" "That I'm complicated," Ava said with an embarrassed grin, "and that I talk too much when I'm nervous." "You don't seem complicated to me." "That's because the date just started." They both laughed, the sound blending into the soft music around them. For a moment, just one, Ethan felt something loosen inside him. Their food arrived, filling the air with warm scents. Ava thanked the waiter with the kind of genuine smile that people rarely used anymore, one that made the other person feel like they mattered. "So, Ethan," she said between small bites, "what do you do?" "Actually do. Not the resume version." He hesitated. People treated him differently when they knew he was the CEO of Kindled Global Innovations. They stiffened. They became cautious. And tonight, strangely, he didn't want that. "I run a company," he said vaguely. "Tech sector." Ava's eyes lit up with curiosity but not awe. "Whoa, like your own company?" "Something like that," he said, dodging gently. "Well," she said, pointing her fork at him with playful seriousness, "if this food is terrible, I'm counting on you to invent something edible." Ethan laughed, genuinely, the sound feeling foreign in his throat. As the minutes passed, Ava's warmth seeped into the space between them. She asked thoughtful questions, listened without checking her phone, and made him forget, just for small stretches, that someone else once sat across from him in booths just like this. But memory was a stubborn thing. Halfway through dinner, Ava brushed her hair back again, exactly like Lily used to. Exactly the same rhythm, the same little shake of her head. And the illusion slammed back into him with ruthless clarity. Ava noticed. "Ethan, did I say something wrong?" "No," he whispered. "No, it's not you. It's just." He stopped. He couldn't say it. Not yet. Ava's expression softened. She didn't push. Instead, she offered a small, almost fragile smile. It's okay. You don't have to explain. And oddly, that was the kindest thing anyone had done for him in years. The rain outside softened into a gentle drizzle as the streetlights flickered. Ethan stayed at the candle between them, its flame dancing quietly, and felt something shift, like the first hint of a door opening somewhere deep within. But with hope comes fear, and his began to rise again, slow and uncertain. The evening continued, but the hardest part, the truth, was still waiting to surface. Ethan lifted his gaze, ready to speak at last, but the words trembled at the edge of his breath. Ethan lifted his gaze, ready to speak at last, but the words trembled at the edge of his breath. Ava watched him quietly, her hands folded, patience written in the gentle tilt of her shoulders. The restaurant around them faded into a blur. The clinking utensils, the soft hum of conversation, the muted rain outside. All of it dulled under the weight of the moment he was trying to navigate. I want to be honest with you, he finally murmured, fingers tightening around his glass. But I'm afraid saying it might ruin the night. Ava blinked slowly, steady as a calm tide. I'm not that easy to scare off, Ethan. Say what you need to. He inhaled, the air catching on the memories he tried to lock away. The candlelight reflected in Ava's eyes, shaping them into something hauntingly familiar, something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. You look like someone I used to know, he said softly. Ava leaned back, absorbing the words instead of reacting to them. No frown, no surprise, just quiet understanding. Someone important, he added, voice barely above a whisper. Ava nodded once. I guess that from the way you stare at me sometimes. Her voice wasn't accusing, just gentle. Was it someone you lost? Ethan's throat tightened. Yes. I'm sorry, she whispered. Truly. Silence settled between them. Soft, respectful, almost sacred. Ethan felt the heaviness in his chest pulse with a strange mix of grief and relief. It had been so long since he spoke Lily's memory aloud to someone new. Ava reached for her water, her fingertips brushing the glass in slow circles. You don't have to tell me more, she said. Not unless you want to. He did want to, but he feared what that want meant. She continued, I don't mind being a reminder, Ethan. But I hope one day, I can also be something separate. The words hit him gently, like a hand placed softly on a wound. Ava didn't ask for details. She didn't pry. That simple respect, so rare, so easy to overlook, made Ethan exhale shakily. Thank you, he whispered. Ava smiled, a soft lift of her lips. You're welcome. The waiter arrived with dessert menus, the interruption breaking just enough tension for the air to feel breathable again. As Ethan glanced over the options, Ava studied him, not in pity, but in openness, like she was giving him permission to exist exactly as he was. Can I tell you something? She said suddenly. Of course. I didn't want to come tonight, she admitted with a small laugh. Blind dates make me feel like I'm interviewing for a role I didn't apply for. Ethan smiled. And now? Ava looked around the room, then back at him. I'm glad I did. Warmth stirred in his chest, small, uncertain, but real. They ordered a shared dessert, at Ava's insistence, and when it arrived, she reached for the spoon first, her elbow knocking a napkin off the table. She bent to pick it up, and Ethan watched her move with a blend of clumsiness and sincerity that tugged painfully at something deep inside him. You remind me of her in the smallest ways, he said, surprising himself as a word slipped out. Not just how you look, but the kindness you don't even realize you give. Ava's gaze softened. Kindness is a choice, she murmured. Not an accident. Lily used to say that too. Lily, Ava repeated gently. She sounds like someone worth missing. She was, Ethan whispered. Every day. A fragile hush fell between them again. Not uncomfortable, just honest. Ava stirred her dessert slowly, her expression thoughtful. You know, we all carry someone we've lost, she said. Different faces, different stories. But the weight is the same. Then she looked up at him in a way that felt almost like a shared confession. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Ava placed her spoon down. The person I lost, he helped me through the darkest time of my life, she said quietly. And even now, I feel like I'm trying to honor him every day. Who was he? Ethan asked gently. My brother, she replied. He passed away 2 years ago. Ethan's breath caught. I'm so sorry, Ava. She offered a soft, brave smile. He taught me to keep showing up for people, even when it's hard, even when I feel small. She shrugged lightly. That's why I didn't cancel tonight. Ethan felt something inside him shift, like grief rearranging itself, making room for something else. Ava, I'm really glad you showed up, he said, voice warm and trembling in equal measure. The words surprised both of them, yet felt like they were meant to be said. Ava looked down, hiding a smile. Me too. A nearby table laughed loudly, momentarily grounding them back in the world around them. The restaurant lights dimmed slightly as the evening crowd thinned, the glow turning more intimate, more cinematic. Ethan noticed Ava rubbing her thumb over a small silver ring on her finger, habitually, like it was a comfort object. He nodded toward it. Your brother's? She glanced at it. Yeah, he gave it to me the day before he left. Her voice wavered but held steady. It reminds me that life keeps going, even when we don't feel ready. Ethan exhaled slowly. Life hasn't felt the same since Lily. I know, she whispered. Loss rearranges us. Their eyes met, two people shaped by grief, finding a fragile bridge between their stories. And for the first time that night, Ethan didn't look at Ava and see a ghost. He saw someone standing on her own ground, someone with her own pain, her own strength. But life had a way of twisting truth again, and the moment that would shake everything was already making its way toward them. Ava's phone buzzed against the table. She glanced at it, and her expression changed. Not fear, not sadness, something else. Something that would unravel the night in a way neither of them could have expected. Ava stared at her phone screen, the glow casting a faint tremble across her features. Her breath hitched, quick, subtle, but enough for Ethan to notice. She locked the screen almost instantly, tucking the phone face down beside her glass. Everything okay? Ethan asked softly. Ava forced a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. Yeah. Just something I wasn't expecting tonight. Something heavy settled in her tone, the kind that hinted at a story she wasn't ready to share. Ethan didn't push. He understood too well how wounds sometimes needed time before they could be touched. She cleared her throat and straightened a little, as if trying to sweep the moment away. So, tell me something about yourself that isn't business-related, she said, nudging the conversation gently forward. Ethan hesitated. Business was easier. It was numbers, logic, goals. But personal, that territory was full of landmines. My favorite place is the old pier by West Haven Beach, he said after a beat. Lily and I used to go there at sunset. She liked the way the waves sounded against the wood. Ava's eyes softened with a kind of respect, quiet, tender. That sounds beautiful, she whispered. It was. He paused. I haven't been back there in 3 years. Ava didn't lecture him, didn't offer cliches about healing. She simply nodded, a gesture that somehow said I understand. Your turn, he said gently. Tell me something real. Ava looked down at her hands, then exhaled, letting the air leave her slowly. I haven't been home in a long time, she murmured. My parents still live in the house where my brother and I grew up. After he died, the place felt haunted. By memories. Ethan asked. She nodded. By guilt, too. Ethan's brows pulled together. Guilt. Ava looked away, her jaw tightening slightly. He died in a car accident. I was supposed to pick him up that night, but I was late. Her voice cracked, just a little. He decided to walk instead. And he never made it home. Ethan's heart clenched. Ava, that wasn't your fault. I know what people say, and sometimes I believe them. But on nights like this, when things feel good, or calm, my mind finds its way back there. He didn't look at her with pity. Instead, he leaned in slightly, his voice steady. You loved him. That's not guilt. That's grief looking for a place to land. Ava blinked hard, her lips trembling for half a second before she steadied herself again. You're kinder than I expected, she whispered. Most people either judge or try to fix me. I'm not here to judge or fix. Just listen. A breathy laugh escaped her, half sad, half grateful. We're quite the pair, huh? Two broken people pretending we're on a regular date. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that's what makes it a real one. The waiter passed by, refilling their water glasses. The restaurant had grown quieter, the late-night hush settling over the tables. Outside, the rain turned to mist, fogging the windows with a soft blur. Ava rested her palms on the table. Can I ask you something personal? She said. Sure. When Lily passed, did you feel like the world kept moving without you? Ethan didn't hesitate. Every day. He swallowed. It felt like watching life through glass. Ava nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the candle between them. That's exactly how I feel. For a while, they simply sat there, two lives tangled in silence, connected by invisible threads of loss. Then Ava spoke again, her voice gentler. I think wounded people recognize each other. I think so too. She fiddled with her ring again, twisting it around her finger. It scares me, you know, she murmured. Letting someone in, even a little, because what if they leave? Or what if I hurt them? Or what if I'm not ready and I end up breaking something good? Ethan watched her carefully. You can't break something by being honest. But honesty can scare people away. Not the right people. Ava looked up at him, really looked, and something flickered in her gaze. Hope, fear, curiosity. Do you think we're right people? She whispered. I don't know, Ethan said honestly. But I think this moment matters. Ava's breath trembled. It does. A small silence followed, soft, warm, full of unspoken possibility. Then Ethan gently nudged his glass toward hers. To shared moments, he said softly. Ava tapped hers against his. To surviving them. Their glasses clinked like a quiet promise. A moment later, Ava leaned back with a thoughtful expression. You know, she murmured, tracing a fingertip along the rim of her glass. Kindness doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it's as simple as showing up. Like we did tonight. She paused as if choosing her words with care. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. The candle flickered, throwing shifting gold across Ava's face. She looked softer now, more vulnerable, yet somehow stronger for it. Ethan felt that soft shift again within him, like something long frozen beginning to thaw. Ava smiled gently. You know, I expected tonight to feel awkward or forced. But instead, she hesitated, searching for the right words. It feels like we're both finally breathing after holding it in for too long. Maybe we needed this more than we thought, Ethan whispered. Ava nodded, her eyes glistening, not with tears, but with something warmer, something hopeful. But fate wasn't done shaping this night. Because just as Ethan opened his mouth to say something he'd never said to anyone since Lily, Ava's phone buzzed again. This time, she didn't silence it. She stayed at the screen, frozen, her face drained of color. Ava? Ethan asked, voice tightening. Her lips parted, her breath hitched, and the truth she had been hiding all night finally cracked through her expression. It's my parents, she whispered. Something's wrong. Ava's fingers trembled as she clutched her phone, her breath uneven, chest rising and falling in short, panicked bursts. Ethan leaned in immediately, concern tightening his voice. Ava, what happened? She swallowed hard, eyes darting across the message again as if rereading it would change the meaning. My mom said my dad collapsed an hour ago. They just got him into emergency care. She didn't want to interrupt my night, but she didn't know what else to do. Her voice cracked on the last word. Ethan didn't think, he simply acted. Let's go, he said, already reaching for his coat. I'll drive. Ava blinked at him, surprised. Ethan, you don't have to. I know, he said gently. But you shouldn't be alone for this. For a moment, she just stared at him, the weight of fear mixing with gratitude. Then she nodded and rose from the booth, grabbing her bag with shaky hands. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her back as they hurried out of the restaurant. The cool night air hit them the moment the door opened. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening like black satin under the streetlights. They rushed to Ethan's car, the urgency vibrating through the silence between them. Once inside, Ava clasped her hands together tightly, her knuckles whitening. Ethan started the engine and drove with careful speed, the city lights streaking past the windows. "Do you want to call your mom?" he asked. Ava shook her head, eyes shining with fear. "She's probably with him. I don't want to distract her." Ethan nodded, understanding more than he explained. The hum of the engine filled the car while Ava's breathing trembled in broken rhythms. Halfway through the drive, her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I can't lose him too." Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "You won't be alone. I'm right here." Ava pressed her lips together, fighting the quiver. The passing lights cast shifting shadows across her face. Fear one moment, determination the next. When they pulled up to the hospital entrance, Ava hurried out, and Ethan quickly followed. The sterile brightness, the hurried footsteps, the soft beeping of machines, everything felt like a world suspended in crisis. At the front desk, Ava spoke breathlessly. "My father, Daniel Hart. He was brought in by ambulance." The nurse typed swiftly. "Is an emergency stabilization. Please wait in the seating area. A doctor will come speak with you." Ava nodded numbly and drifted toward the waiting area, her steps unsteady. Ethan sat beside her, close but not imposing, offering silent support. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time in hospital waiting rooms didn't move normally. It stretched, twisted, held people hostage in the spaces between answers. Ava's hands fidgeted restlessly. Ethan gently reached out, palm open. She hesitated, then placed her trembling hand in his. The moment their fingers intertwined, something inside her seemed to steady. He has a heart condition," she whispered. "My brother had it too. Runs in the family." She inhaled shakily. "That's why I still blame myself sometimes. I should have been more careful with both of them." "That's not how love works," Ethan murmured. "It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't give warnings. And guilt sticks even when the truth doesn't support it." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. "I feel like I'm always one call away from losing everything." Ethan looked at her with a quiet, heart-deep empathy. "I know that feeling." Their eyes met, two scars recognizing each other. Moments later, a doctor approached. "Ava Hart." Ava stood immediately, Ethan rising at her side. "Your father is stable for now," the doctor said. "He responded well to treatment, but he needs to be monitored closely tonight." Ava exhaled, knees weakening with relief. Ethan instinctively steadied her. "Can I see him?" she asked. The doctor nodded. "Just for a few minutes." Ava followed him down the corridor, but before she stepped into the room, she turned to Ethan. "Come with me." He blinked. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to do this alone." He nodded softly. "Then I'll be right beside you." They entered the dimly lit hospital room. Her father lay with tubes and monitors surrounding him, but his chest rose steadily with each breath. Ava approached quietly, brushing a stray hair from his forehead with trembling fingers. "Hi, Dad," she whispered. "I'm here." Ethan stayed near the doorway, giving her space yet ready to step closer at any moment. Watching her tenderness stirred something profound inside him, a reminder of a love he once held and the possibility of healing he had never considered until tonight. Ava kissed her father's temples softly, tears slipping down her cheeks in silent streams. Ethan's chest tightened at the sight. Pain could make a person crumble, but it could also reveal the deepest parts of them, and Ava's depth glowed even in sorrow. She turned slightly toward Ethan, her voice hushed. "Thank you for being here. I know this wasn't how tonight was supposed to go." Ethan shook his head gently. Maybe this is exactly how it needed to go. Ava inhaled deeply, letting the weight of the night settle into her. The monitors beeped softly, a fragile symphony of life. Her father's eyelids fluttered slightly, still unconscious, but responsive enough to reassure her. A single breath escaped Ava, full of emotion. I didn't realize how much fear I'd been carrying. Ethan stepped closer, his presence grounding. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Her eyes glistened at the sincerity in his voice. And for the first time tonight, she let herself breathe a little deeper. She looked at Ethan again, really looked, and the truth of how much this moment meant to her flickered quietly across her expression. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Ava brushed one last tear from her cheek, then whispered, "He's going to be okay. I think I can finally believe that." Ethan nodded softly. He will. But as she held her father's hand, Ethan saw something else flicker through her expression, a concern she hadn't voiced yet, something heavier than tonight alone. And he knew there was more she hadn't told him, more she'd been holding back. Ava stood by her father's bedside, her fingers loosely wrapped around his, but her gaze had drifted, somewhere far beyond the hospital room. Ethan noticed the shift, the quiet tension tightening her shoulders, the way her breath grew shallow again. He stepped closer, speaking softly. "Ava, there's something else on your mind." She didn't answer at first. Her eyes were fixed on her father's steady but fragile breathing, on the pale rise and fall of his chest beneath the thin blanket. She looked like she was caught between the relief of one crisis easing and the dread of another creeping in. Finally, she whispered, "I haven't told my parents about the date tonight." Ethan blinked. "That's not something you need to feel guilty about." Ava shook her head. "No, it's not that." Her voice cracked. "It's who I was supposed to meet." A quiet pulse of confusion flickered through Ethan. "Ava, what do you mean?" She rubbed the back of her hand against her face, wiping at the streaks of tears she couldn't hide anymore. "The friend who set up this blind date. She told me your first name. Just your first name." Ethan nodded slowly. "But on the way here, before I walked into the restaurant," Ava hesitated. "She texted me your last name too." Ethan's heartbeat paused, one split second of silence in his chest. "And when I saw it," Ava swallowed hard. "I panicked." His breath caught. "Why?" Ava looked at him then, really looked, and Ethan saw fear, guilt, and something deeper trembling behind her eyes. "Because I already knew who you were," she whispered, "even before I saw your face." The world around them seemed to tighten, the hospital lights humming faintly above their heads. Ethan's voice came out low. "Ava, what are you trying to say?" She stepped back from the bed, her hands trembling. "The night my brother died, the car accident that took him," she looked down, struggling to force the words out. "The other driver, the one who hit him, was an employee of Coal Global. He was driving late, overworked, exhausted. Your company paid for the settlement. My family never fought it." Ethan felt cold ripple down his spine. She continued with a shaky breath. "I never blamed the driver. He was grieving too. But I blamed the system, the pressure, the impossible hours, and the CEO who allowed it." "The CEO? Him?" Ethan's stomach twisted, the floor feeling suddenly unsteady. The beeping of the monitor felt louder, sharp, almost accusatory. "Ava," he whispered, his voice shaking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know you didn't." Her voice was soft, breaking. "But when I saw your last name earlier, everything inside me froze." Her breath shuddered. I almost walked away. Ethan ran a shaky hand through his hair. "Why didn't you?" Ava looked up, her eyes shimmering painfully. "Because by the time I realized who you were, I had already met you. Already felt something easing inside me for the first time in years." Ethan felt something inside him splinter, not from guilt alone, but from the sight of Ava carrying pain meant for him without even knowing him. "Ava," he said gently, "I would give anything to undo what happened. Anything." "I know," she whispered, "and that's part of what scares me." He took a step toward her, slow, unsure, but wanting to bridge the distance between them. "Please, let me explain." But Ava stepped back, shaking her head. "I don't want explanations tonight. I'm not ready." The rejection wasn't harsh, but it landed like a quiet blow. She wrapped her arms around herself, the weight of conflicting truths bending her posture. Meeting you, feeling safe with you, and then realizing you were connected to the worst night of my life. It's too much. My mind keeps twisting in circles. Ethan felt his throat tighten. I understand. Ava looked at him with raw honesty. I don't know what to do with all of this. Part of me wants to run. The other part. Her voice faltered. The other part doesn't want you to leave. Ethan's breath caught at the vulnerability in her tone. Hospitals always felt like crossroads, filled with choices people never wanted to make. He stepped closer again, voice trembling with sincerity. Ava, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to add to your pain. But I'm here, however you need me, whatever pace you choose. Ava pressed a palm against her forehead. I don't know if I can forgive what happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Ethan nodded slowly, even though the words felt like they cut something inside him open. Forgiveness can't be forced. It takes time, and sometimes it doesn't come at all. A tear slipped down her cheek. I want to try, but I'm terrified. His eyes softened. I'm terrified too. The machines hummed gently around them, the only witnesses to the fragile truth hanging in the air. Ava closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. Ethan, be honest. Could you forgive someone if they were tied to the worst moment of your life? He hesitated, only for a moment. I don't know, he whispered, but I'd hope I could. Ava held his gaze, her fear and hope colliding in one trembling breath. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Ava wiped her face softly. I'm not asking you to fix the past, she said. But I need space to decide what to do with the truth. Ethan nodded gently, stepping back to give her room. I'll wait, he whispered. Ava let out a slow, painful breath. But neither of them knew. The hardest truth of the night was still approaching, quiet, unseen, waiting to shift everything again. Ava stood there, arms wrapped around a trembling frame, trying to hold together the pieces of a world that had shifted too fast. Ethan kept his distance, giving her space while feeling his own heart taut with guilt, worry, and an ache he didn't know how to name yet. The soft beeping from her father's monitor filled the silence, steady, reassuring, but carrying the weight of everything unspoken between them. Ava wiped her cheeks again, but her hands shook. I don't understand why life keeps bringing me full circle. Why the very thing I'm trying to heal from shows up wearing the face of someone who feels safe. Ethan swallowed. Maybe it's not a circle, he said gently. Maybe it's a bridge. Her eyes lifted toward him, hesitant, searching. A bridge to what? To something new, he said quietly. Not replacing the old, just finding a way to breathe again. Ava's lips trembled, but she didn't look away. Before she could respond, her father shifted slightly in the bed, letting out a faint groan. Ava's breath caught, hope flickering in her eyes as she rushed closer. Dad, can you hear me? His eyelids fluttered, trying to rise. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, staying by the doorway but ready if Ava needed support. Her father's voice came out shaky, faint. Ava. She exhaled a broken sound. Yeah, Dad, I'm here. He blinked at her, disoriented but alive. You came. Of course I did. Ethan watched the moment with a heaviness in his chest, its sweetness, its fragility. Ava held her father's hand gently, her forehead almost touching the back of his palm. You scared me, she whispered. I'm okay, he rasped. You will be, she promised, brushing the tears off her face with the back of her hand. Her father took a few breaths, gaze soft but clouded. You shouldn't cry alone, he murmured. Ava froze. Her father's gaze drifted, landing on Ethan. For a moment, Ethan felt exposed, like someone was looking straight into the place where his own grief lived. Who? Her father asked weakly. Ava hesitated. Dad, this is Ethan. Her father's brow furrowed as if trying to recall something, but then relaxed. A good man. Ava looked back at Ethan slowly. Yes, she whispered. A good man. The words hit Ethan deeper than she knew. Her father nodded faintly. Good. More silence. More soft breathing. More fragile hope gathering in the dimly lit room. A nurse entered quietly. He needs to rest now, she said, offering them a gentle smile. Ava brushed her father's forehead once more. I'll be right outside, okay? He nodded weakly. Ethan stepped back as Ava kissed her father's hand and turned toward the hallway. The nurse adjusted the monitors, and the door closed softly behind them. Out in the corridor, Ava released a heavy exhale, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Ethan studied her carefully. How are you feeling? She leaned against the wall, exhaustion settling into her bones. Relieved, and guilty, and confused, and everything all at once. Ethan took a step closer, but not too close. You don't have to sort through it tonight. Ava looked at him, tired, but softer than before. You stayed with me. I wasn't going anywhere. Her eyes shimmered, not with pain this time, but with quiet gratitude. Ethan, she whispered, you're making it very hard not to trust you. He paused, his breath catching at the vulnerability in her voice. You don't have to decide anything tonight, he said gently. We've both lived in the past for too long. Tonight was a lot. For both of us. Ava nodded slowly. It was. A doctor's voice echoed from the far end of the hallway, the sound grounding them again in the hospital's late-night atmosphere. Ava pushed off the wall, walking toward a row of chairs. Ethan followed, sitting beside her with careful space between them. She stared at the floor, tracing invisible patterns with her shoe. Ethan, do you ever think people come into our lives at the exact moment they're supposed to? Even if the timing feels cruel. He looked at her gently. I think sometimes life breaks us open so something new can grow. Ava inhaled shakily. Maybe you're right. Her hand drifted toward his on the seat between them, hesitant, uncertain. Ethan didn't move, didn't force it. He simply let his presence be an invitation, not a demand. After a long moment, her fingers lightly touched his. Not a hold, not a commitment, just a reaching. Ethan turned his palm upward, slowly, offering her a choice. Ava gazed at their almost touching hands with a tender ache in her expression. She wasn't ready to intertwine them again. Not fully, but she didn't pull away either. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Ava's voice softened. Maybe love can win again. Maybe. Ethan whispered back. Maybe it already started. Ava closed her eyes at that, just for a moment, letting the words settle into her heart like a warm light. But there was one more truth inside her, a truth she hadn't yet spoken, a truth that would shake everything they were trying to rebuild. She opened her eyes slowly, turning toward him. Her lips parted. Ethan, there's something else I need to tell you. Ava's voice trembled in the quiet hallway. Ethan, there's something else I need to tell you. Her fingers curled into her palms, as if bracing herself. Ethan sat up straighter, worry flickering in his chest. You can tell me anything, he said softly. Ava nodded, but her throat worked as she struggled to speak. I didn't just learn your last name today. I didn't just recognize it. She drew a shaky breath. I've known it for a long time. Ethan felt a cold thread coil through his spine. How long? Ava's eyes glistened. Since the night my brother died. Silence spread across the hallway like a slow-moving tide. Ethan's breath stilled. Ava hugged her arms, looking small against the sterile white wall. My parents, they couldn't stop talking about the company afterward. Your company. I even went online and looked up everything I could about you. Not because I hated you. I just needed to understand. Understand what? Ethan whispered. Why someone that powerful, someone who could change policies, fix overworking, prevent another family from going through what mine did, didn't do it sooner. The words weren't sharp like accusations. They were soft, broken, honest. The kind that hurt more because they held truth. Ava, Ethan murmured. But she shook her head. I'm not done. He quieted. She stared at her hands. At first, I blamed you. Unfairly, maybe. But grief isn't logical. I kept saying if the CEO had made better rules, if he cared more about work hours, maybe my brother would still be alive. Ethan felt something inside him sink, heavy, leaden. Ava lifted her gaze slowly. But then, the more I researched you, the more I saw interviews, articles. I realized you weren't some cold corporate villain. You were young when you took over. The company was a mess before you inherited it. You'd already changed so much. Her voice lowered. And then I saw the news about your wife. His chest tightened. You lost her around the same time I lost my brother, Ava whispered. I remember seeing your photo, looking hollow, like someone who'd forgotten how to breathe. Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. And I remember thinking, God, he looks like me. Ava exhaled shakily. That's when I stopped blaming you. A long, fragile silence followed. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was holding on to pieces of himself. Ava, why didn't you tell me this sooner? Because I was afraid, she whispered. Afraid you'd think I only came tonight to confront you, or that I had some hidden agenda. Oh, her voice broke. That you wouldn't want anything to do with me once you knew. Ethan's chest ached with something deep, something tangled between pain and compassion. Ava, I'm not angry. Her breath shuddered. Then what are you? He looked at her, really looked, and she felt the weight of his gaze like warmth settling over cold skin. I'm hurting, he said honestly. Not because of you, but because knowing my company was part of the pain you carry. His voice cracked slightly. It kills me. Ava's eyes filled again, but she didn't look away. I don't want you to carry that. Maybe I should, Ethan whispered. She shook her head softly. No, you weren't the driver. You didn't force that man to stay late. You didn't want my brother to die, and you didn't want to lose your wife either. Ethan swallowed hard. Still, I could have done better. Earlier, I could have protected him. Ava touched his arm, hesitant but full of sincerity. You can't rewrite the past, but you've already changed the present for hundreds of people who work for you. That matters. Ethan's breath shook as something fragile and buried surfaced inside him. Guilt he tucked away out of habit, pain he never let himself admit. You're not the villain in my story, Ava whispered. You were just part of the storm. He closed his eyes, leaning slightly into her touch. And now, she murmured, her voice trembling, you're the only person tonight who kept me from falling apart. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, something soft and raw unfolding within him. Ava, after everything you've told me, after everything you've carried, you still see me like that. Ava looked at him with gentle certainty. Yes. The hallway felt quieter suddenly, as if the hospital itself had paused to give them space. Ethan reached out, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. She didn't pull back. In fact, she leaned into his hand as though the warmth anchored her. I don't know what we're becoming, she whispered. I don't know if this is a beginning or a mistake or something in between. Ethan felt the same uncertainty, the same flicker of hope, the same fragile fay. We don't have to define it tonight, he said softly. We just have to tell the truth. And the truth is, I care about you, Ava, more than I expected, more than I should after one night. Her breath hitched. I care about you too. They sat there, inches apart, bound by grief and drawn by something unfamiliar yet comforting. But fragile hope was still just hope. Ava looked down, her voice barely a whisper. I'm scared of trusting the wrong person. Ethan nodded slowly. Me too. She lifted her eyes again, shining, searching. Do we try anyway? He didn't hesitate. Yes, he whispered. We try. Ava exhaled shakily, relief softening her shoulders. But neither of them knew. The night still held one last revelation. One last emotional blow. One that would test everything they just decided to hold on to. A nurse approached slowly from down the hall, a hesitant look on her face. Ms. Hart, I need to tell you something else about your father's condition. Ava froze. Ethan felt the world tilt. And the next words would change everything. The nurse approached with hesitant steps, her expression heavy with the kind of news that never arrived softly. Ava's spine straightened, fear rippling through her like a cold wave. Ethan touched her elbow gently, a grounding presence, though his own heartbeat had begun to tremble. The nurse folded her hands. Ms. Hart, your father is stable, but the test shows something we didn't see earlier. Ava swallowed, the hallway around her narrowing to a single point of sound. What is it? She whispered. We found signs of an old, undiagnosed block in one of his arteries. Tonight's collapse wasn't just from exhaustion, it was from long-term strain. He'll need a minor procedure soon. It's not life-threatening if treated, but without it, she paused, choosing her words carefully. It could have been much worse. Ava's breath fractured, relief and fear hitting her at once. Ethan instinctively stepped closer. What kind of procedure? A stent placement, the nurse replied. Is strong, and his vitals look promising. With proper rest and follow-up care, he has an excellent chance. Ava nodded slowly, tears welling. Thank you so much. The nurse gave a comforting smile. I'll give you two some time, she said before heading back down the hall. Ava didn't speak. She lowered herself into the chair, elbows on her knees, fingers pressed against her lips. Ethan took the seat beside her. You can breathe, he murmured. He's going to be okay. She nodded, but tears still slid silently down her cheeks. It feels like every person I love is held together by threads, she whispered. And I'm so scared those threads will snap when I'm not looking. Ethan reached out, this time gently taking her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers tightened around his. Is strong, Ethan said softly, and is not carrying this alone. Not anymore. Ava looked at him, eyes shimmering. Ethan, I don't want to push you away because of the past, but I don't want to hurt you either. Or myself. You won't, he whispered. How do you know? Because the way you care, the way you show up, it's not the kind that breaks people. It's the kind that heals them. Ava let out a trembling breath, as if those were the exact words she had needed all along. They sat like that for a moment, hands intertwined gently, pain and hope woven between their fingers. The fear didn't vanish, but it softened. Ava squeezed his hand. I'm not perfect, Ethan. Neither am I. I'm scared. Me too. And somehow, that shared fear made them feel less alone. Ava leaned her head against his shoulder, slowly, cautiously, like someone afraid the moment might disappear if she moved too quickly. Ethan stilled, savored the warmth, the closeness, the fragile miracle of being allowed to hold someone again without drowning in memory. She whispered, Do you really think we can move forward, even with everything between us? Yes, Ethan said, with a steady certainty that surprised even him. Because what's between us isn't just pain. It's understanding. Ava closed her eyes, breathing him in, letting her guard drop for the first time all night. A long moment passed before she lifted her head slightly, her voice soft but full of trembling hope. If you believe love still wins, she murmured, repeating her earlier words but with new meaning. Comment, Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Her voice cracked at the end. Ethan brushed her cheek gently, wiping the tears she missed. But Ava wasn't done, not entirely. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes fully, her voice a low whisper. Ethan, you've been honest with me tonight, and I want to be honest too. I don't know what we are yet. I don't know if this becomes a story or memory, but I do know you showed up when I needed someone most. And that matters to me, more than I can say. Ethan's chest tightened in a way that felt almost like healing. Ava, I don't need a promise. I just need a chance. She nodded, her breath shaky but filled with something fragile and growing. Then a chance is what I'll give. Their hands tightened together, not as strangers bound by loss, but as two souls cautiously stepping towards something new. A nose called Ava's name gently down the hall. You can see him again now. Ava stewed, wiping her eyes. She turned to Ethan, hesitating. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Not briefly, not politely, but with the fullness of someone who finally allowed herself to lean on another heart. Ethan held her just as firmly. When she pulled back, her voice was soft. Stay, at least until I fall asleep in the chair next to him. Ethan nodded with a warm, quiet smile. I'm not going anywhere. Ava exhaled, relieved, and as she turned toward her father's room, Ethan followed, two shadows walking side by side down a sterile hallway, carrying the quiet beginnings of something that might one day be called love. Before we leave this story behind, if this journey touched you, don't scroll by quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the woman who carried grief, guilt, and fear yet still chose hope. One click can be your way of saying, I felt this with you. Final moral. Love doesn't always arrive wrapped in perfection. Sometimes it walks into your life disguised as a stranger, carrying pain that mirrors your own. And sometimes, healing begins not when the past disappears, but when two people decide to face the future together, slowly, honestly, and with trembling hope.